All right, we're rolling. Let's jam. I'm watching the news this morning, and they show, this icy road. I don't know, the 94, the 90, something like that. And they're like something like 60 something trucks, or I can't remember the number to be exact, or jackknifed, or off the road, or whatever. And it's ironic because my chosen profession, what I prefer to do, is trucking. I love the feeling of driving a truck. It is kind of have mixed feelings about it because at some certain point, I wonder to myself, if I was getting like a government check, like a crazy check, like UBI or something, even though I love driving truck, would I go back to it? And there's little different things, in that, whatnot. Yeah. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. Let's get into this. And hey, turn up the video speed. And as I always say, this is a channel for adults. I swear. I talk about real issues. You are just letting your kids watch anything on the internet. You're a shitty parent. That's not my fault. That's on you. Try being a real parent. Yeah, let's get into it. By the way, like and subscribe and always turn up the video speed. Why do I say that? Because I watch videos at faster speeds. Why shouldn't everybody else? God. It's like I said, I love driving truck. I love the feeling of it. I love the organized chaos of it. I love the randomness of travel. I love the travel part too. It's just like one day you're up in the Northwest, get a load of apples or frozen, French fries or something. Next thing you know, 4 days later, it's not really totally 4 days, but you're down in Atlanta or you're over in Chicago, and then you do this kind of big triangle of sorts. Basically you go a long load to get to somewhere and then maybe a couple hop loads to get back. I mean, kind of the perfect run, I'd say, because if you do it right and your loads are synchronized really well, so you're not wasting time. Like you show up the night before and people are like, you're not supposed to do this, but you ghost into the warehouse facility and they unload on their time. You just, pro tip, drop the trailer and just pull far enough ahead of it. That way, when they're unloading, you get good sleep, and then they call you up when they're done. But yeah, they do their thing on their time, and then the next day you get loaded, maximum time, and that first 4 days. I don't know if the recap is still the same way it used to be, but that first 4 days, those first three at the very least, you are running as hard as possible. And the reason for that, and you want to time it to where you get the good sleep, start off at the right time, start off early in the morning if possible. And people are like, why early in the morning? That way, your sleep is fresh when your eyes need as much energy as possible. And part of the reason guys get drowsy when they drive is because it's just not natural. Normally, you can see how much further down the road, but because you got a limited eye space, it's actually it's strange, and that's part of the reason your body's like, hey, you should go to bed. It's nighttime. But if you wake up fresh, let's say you start off at, I don't know, 6 in the morning, 5 or 4, you could, if you're power running, you can basically, you don't think in the concepts of a 24-hour day. You think in the concepts of a 22-hour day. And that's not how long you work. You have a 14-hour day you can work with, but you can only drive 11. And realistically, you're going to have to take a half an hour off. So just make it an hour. You take your 30-minute break at a truck stop to get your shower within the first 8 hours. So you time it to where, and also if you're doing it right, you do it to where basically halfway through the day when you need coffee, that's when you get the coffee. You make your own coffee. Unless you have diamond status. I don't know if that's still the thing with Loves. And with diamond status, you get free coffee, free stuff, and you get, I think it was something like 4 to 5 times the points. At least I was getting 5 times the points. Don't ask me why. It was only supposed to be 4 times. I don't understand why that was happening. But I was like, yay. I was like, cool. You do it just right. And then basically your work day is like 12 hours, including your break. And then you go to bed, you take a 10-hour break. And you get up a little earlier. Every day, you're going to get up like 2 hours earlier. And then next thing you know, 3 days into it, you've got 3 11s sitting there floating for recap. And then the last day going down to Atlanta, for instance, it's not a full day. So that's going to be a crap recap. But you still have time left over on a 70-hour deal. You still have three full tens to work with. So in fact, realistically, when you get unloaded down to, say, in Atlanta, you basically would have 3 full days to work with. Now, that first reloading day, that's going to kind of probably be a crap day too. And it's likely what'll happen is, it's like, let's say you get a load from Atlanta. Let's just go with the example of Houston or Dallas. You go there. Now, from there, you may get just a load back up into the Northwest, something like that. Or, God forbid, Denver. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate Denver. It's just Denver has only a few loads. You got beer loads. I used to have worked for a company that did cardboard, which is a good load for that company, but it was super light, so you had to be careful going over Elk Mountain in Wyoming. The wind blows 2 times a year in Wyoming for 6 months at a time. And basically, sometimes it gets vicious up there, like you're talking 60 something plus miles per hour on the gust, which will tip over a light truck. By the way, you'll see hot shotters up there that these people are like, I can move that, or some dipshit old person that doesn't understand anything. You just bought this brand new RV and you got your nice pickup, and your damn thing gets blown over because you're like, I gotta make it to my location. You're retired. Why do you care? You get these light loads and they get tipped over. But generally, the loads you'll pick up out of the greater Denver area going north on the 25 are going to be either beer loads, maybe a soda load. I hate beer loads. And the reason is not only they're heavy, but the boxes are slippery. So, I mean, like, why does that matter? You know how you ever take a beer box at a grocery store? Just do this as an experiment and see how easy it slides. You have someone. I had a load out of Houston one time, and this jackass woman in a crapper minivan in Lamar, Colorado, just fucking cut out in front of me, and I had to slam on my brakes. And luckily, nobody got hurt, but it caused the Heineken load to basically shift, and that screwed up some stuff. And then we had to hire a side company to basically go through and process that. It was a fucking nightmare. It was a goddamn nightmare. I hate beer loads just because of the way the boxes. It's not the weight, it's the boxes. The weight can be an advantage. Yes, you're going to go slower on the uphill, but you're not going to get blown over in Elk Mountain. You're not going to have any issues over there in the east. The only other thing I could say sometimes that can be a problem is how far back are you going to have to put your weight. This is a Californian thing, by the way, as well. The bridge law and all that crap. Oh, that's a fucking nightmare. That's one reason why some people don't. Among the other reasons of, like, you can't have this style of truck or that style of truck, but that's kind of an old issue now. Seems like most people, they have new trucks, DEF trucks. But if you have an older truck, yeah, you just don't do California. But the bridge law is fucking annoying because there's a lot of parts of the country where they don't understand that. Well, the load is legal if you do this. Yeah, but it's not legal in California. It's got to be to this level. This point here is where the cutoff is, and you didn't make it, so we got to reshuffle this somehow. And then knowing the problem with freight, and this is one of the things, is if you do a load, the same load all the time, there can be a formula, but different products, different weight, different things, and then you're basically, unless it's a uniform load, where they've done a bunch of loads out there, and you got what you want in the warehouse for the person that's on the east shipping to California is the old timer that's done that load 1,000 times when he reloads it. You want that guy that knows, okay, if we put this, single, double, single, and then whatever towards the back, that'll generally work. Or maybe we need more weight on the front, so double, single, something like that. You get my point. That way there isn't too much weight on the back because of the bridge law. Yay! But there's little things in this industry that I look at, and you think to yourself, what the recap, let's say you get to Houston and then you get a load out to California. And hopefully it's light enough to where the bridge laws are going to be an issue. I've had loads of exotic coffee, whatever company it was, I can't remember. And it was multiple drops. That was a really good run. Basically all the way out to, I think it was Atlanta that time or something like that. I can't remember. It was all the way to the east. It could have been Chicago, then dive down to the south. then to Houston, or it was either Houston or Dallas, and then loaded up the coffee stuff. And then I think it was Houston because I took the I-10. Yeah, it was Houston. I took the I-10 all the way to some part of California. It wasn't LA, but it was like Baker or something like that. Barstow, I can't think it was Baker. Unloaded the first unload, then went up to Redding, somewhere around Redding, California. Unloaded the second, and the last was up there in Spokane. And after that, I picked up a fruit load. I was running on recap at that point, where I was recapping hours. Because the first few days, I basically I was power running. And then after that, it's just like, do what you can. And then it was cool. It was really cool. And I got, it was every once in a while you get a perfect run like that. And it's just, you're looking at the money and you're just like, the money's coming in. You're like, people say, well, you own your own truck. No. I tell you the truth. There are times I've thought about buying my own truck, but the industry's just too up and down. Plus, then it's like, there was a time not so long ago when, before the chip shortage that happened around COVID, there was the ability that you could go to an auction or buy a farm truck. And by the way, farm trucks usually get beat to hell, but you could buy an older truck and, go through, rebuild the motor. You basically buy something for 5 to 10,000, maybe 15, and then you put 35 to 45,000 into it, and you basically have a brand new older truck. And they're like, well, something will always go wrong. And it's like, this is where you deal with a lot of really dumb people. There's a guy, he had the formula right. It was HT Logistics. He's called, you don't just bring a truck and bring it out there. You get it load ready. Because you get these guys, they'll go out, they'll buy a truck, and they'll just put it on the road. They'll get licensed and all this, and they'll just drive. And then something goes wrong, and they get hosed at the mechanic out there in the middle of nowhere, versus taking that truck to your own mechanic, your guy. Like on your off season, when it's crappy, you don't want to run anyways. That's when you have your guy do everything, and you go through, and it's not, you make sure before you even buy the vehicle, you make sure the motor's a good enough, solid vehicle to be worth rebuilding if necessary. You go through, you rebuild it. And by the way, the other thing you'll see is guys like, well, I had this rebuilt, this many miles ago. And I'm like, if I was ever to buy a used truck in the trucking world, I would never buy a truck like that. They're like, well, why? Okay, maybe this guy's got paperwork for it. Maybe he's got paperwork. But because he's got paperwork and he claims this, and then I'm going to have to go and research, has this motor really been rebuilt? Was this a redneck rebuild? How do I know this? I don't want to pay an extra $10,000, $20,000 for your used truck, or however much you'll see these guys and they want $80,000 or, $50,000 to $80,000 for their truck, or even more, because, I got a rebuild done on it. It's like, yeah, but you've already put 400,000 miles on that rebuild. Now, mind you, these motors are designed to go, at least the old ones were, 1,000,000 miles plus. Like, basically, if you take care of the motor along the way, you could basically rebuild that motor and probably get another 1,000,000 out of it if you take care of it, or more. I've seen guys that have had a truck they bought back in the mid to late 80s that they still run OTR, and they know that truck inside and out. In fact, they could probably do the rebuild themselves. But when they do a rebuild, it's worth the money. That's how trucks used to be built. Now, the question thing with newer trucks, they're disposable. They really are. Just like everything. I mean, yeah, sure, they'll probably make it, 800,000 miles, 1,000,000, and you could probably do a rebuild on them, but it's just not the same. The thing I look at with it is just like, as far as working, I don't know, man. The thing that you could argue that if you bought your own truck is, now people say, well, the cost of fuel, your older truck only gets this type of mileage. The older truck doesn't have DEF on it. That 99 or older truck does not have diesel exhaust fluid on it. And I don't know if y'all understand how diesel exhaust fluid works, but basically they have to heat it up. It's this fluid they spray into the exhaust, this special burning exhaust, literally fire exhaust system that incinerates the gases coming in. So I just want you all to know, when you all bitching about, these dirty, polluting trucks, maybe an older truck, I'll give you that. But anything after 99, and there was a number of years there where those DEF systems were just the death of your truck. They literally, in order to run that DEF system, they would heat up. It's heating up the motor more than you normally would have to. It's heating up and cooling more often than it has to, which wears it out even quicker. So that's part of the reason your newer trucks don't last as long, is because of all that heating and cooling in order to light the shit on fire inside of your exhaust system. DEF was a stupid idea to begin with. It just was. I mean, well, now basically, instead of this noxious gas, it farts out fairy dust. Your exhaust comes out, and then eventually your DEF system gets plugged. Like, you do burnouts, cleanouts, but sooner or later, no matter what you do, kind of like a catalytic converter, a crapolytic converter, sooner or later, your catalytic converter will get plugged, and so will your DEF unit. So what ends up happening is that this system actually costs you mileage. And if not for the fact that we have these, here's what they could have done ages ago to fix this fucking problem. Just like some of the European countries that did this, that got away from DEF. And they're smaller countries, so it's easier for them to do it. They just refined their fuel cleaner. They made cleaner fuel, which produces less emissions. Woo! Wow, such genius thinking, right? We could have done that. But instead, what we did was we tried to build a fuel diaper, exhaust diaper. That's what it is. And so, yeah, some of these modern trucks, I will give you, after 20 years, 15 to 20, like say 15 to 20 years, let's go with 20 years, it's been 25 years now, but about up 20 years, they started getting shit right. It took 20 years to unfuck the problem they built. And yeah, those other trucks in that 20 years, they ran, but there were so many goddamn issues. So that's part of the reason I wouldn't want to buy a modern truck. And the other part is that a modern truck, basically, what are we talking? Like, I don't even know what they cost anymore. It used to be, $250,000 to $300,000 before interest. Well, you can claim the payments on your taxes. Wow, that sounds great. And I just want to put this to how most people don't understand this. Well, you don't make once a month payments when you rent a semi. You make a once a week payment. Back when I was in the game, a lot of them drivers were paying over $1,000 a week. $1,000 now. Yeah, you got you. And by the way, if you got the good loads, you got a good line on loads. You got to know brokering. You got to know all this shit. You got to have multiple people. You got to have a sea of people that you do business with, as far as companies and brokers and all this crap. That way, you don't just rely off a few people. You have a huge network of people, and you can make some goddamn good money. I've heard of loads like 12,000 or higher loads. You're going across the country, and you're like 12,000. Yeah, whatever you're carrying is worth a lot of money, and they want it across the country real fast. And that's where it gets into: do you have a husband-wife team? Or I don't care. Let's say you're two gay couples. Do you have a team? Maybe it's you and your brother, or you and one of your relatives, to where you can really, if the option comes up, you can make that hot load really hot. See, and then can you handle sleeping in that situation? Can you sleep while the truck's moving? That's another thing that they changed ages ago. They used to have the ability to do the split 5, where you could split up your sleeper. Imagine if you could swap like that. Because some people can't sleep for 10 hours, especially when the truck's jiggling around. They could sleep for maybe 7 hours. The problem with sleeping 7 hours is and 7's not bad sleep, but if, let's just say they hit a bad bump and you get woke up and you just can't fall back asleep 5 hours in. Yeah, now you got crappy sleep. Now you're awake for 5 hours. You're trying to sleep. But you can't reset until at least 8, but realistically 10. I've seen guys, just for that reason, when their shift's over, they'll literally stay up a few extra hours That way, just in case they get woke up, at least they're woke up closer. Like if you wake up an hour or two before your shift, before your 10-hour break ends, at least in that situation, you're at least closer to when you were supposed to get up to begin with. You know, some of the hours of service stuff, I mean, I understand for safety. I do understand it, but some of it's fucking ridiculous. And so people say, well, as far as buying a truck, on another thing about owning your own truck, if you own an older truck, and a lot of guys don't tell you this, but see, just like your payments are 100% claim on your taxes, so is your fuel. Now, you add up how much less mileage you're getting compared to a modern truck, but then you add up how much you're actually saving. Like, what do you mean? He pays out at least $1,000. I don't even know what they're charging these days for these drivers out there. Probably $1,200 or more. Who knows? For a lease or a payment on their truck. You have a substantially less payment there. You have no payment because you went out, you saved your money, bought an old truck, rebuilt everything, and sure, it gets a little less mileage. But because you have no payment, and he has a payment, plus a fuel cost, you understand where I'm going with this? You might pay more for fuel than he does, but you don't pay that extra $1,000 to $1,200 a week. So you actually come out on top. Well, what if something goes wrong on your truck? Then you fix it. And most of it you already fixed when you were back with your mechanic. So there's a lot of different things that you got to find. And this is another thing about these days, as far as people are fucking incompetent these days. And I don't say that to be mean or rude. Finding a good mechanic is worth its weight in gold. But the fucking search for the holy grail of mechanics, that's what it feels like. Just like when you build a house. Because okay, let me give you an example. And the same thing affects mechanics, diesel mechanics in the trucking industry. For every 3 boomers and older Gen Xers that have left the industry of plumbing, electricians, and mechanics or whatever, we get 1 person back. That means that 1 person is in high demand, and likely it's going to be hard for that person might just say, fuck building my own shop. I'm just going to go work for this company that's paying me top dollar because there's not enough mechanics. So then it's harder and harder to find that guy, to be your guy. Plus, a lot of the tech that I'm talking about, we're talking 99 or older. The type of guy you really want to work on that type of stuff is a tech that's been around for years. A guy who started off back in the 80s. 80s or 90s. He started off in the 90s. Let's say in the 90s. So he's seen everything that's going to happen. That guy's getting older now. That guy might be retiring now or already retired. Hopefully you got their kid. That he was like, hey, son, here's how you work on this. But that is becoming rare and rare. So it comes back to the concept of, would I buy a truck? And the answer is no. Because we don't have an America anymore that actually really supports working people. We don't have the industry, just like with plumbers and electricians and all that. I know this because when I did that remodel, it was a goddamn nightmare. The reason that we did all the plumbing and the electric and all that stuff, and it all passed legally, because you can do it all legally. You know what you're doing. The only reason we did it is because there was like a 7th-month wait for someone to give a bid. Now, if that's part of the reason I am not big on houses, I'm not playing this game. The only reason I have to jump through these hoops are because these arbitrary rules that somebody else set. Now, don't get me wrong. We need to have standards for housing. But when I can go and build, like, let's just say I got one of those fold-up houses you see for like $4,000 to $20,000. It looks like it folds up and it's about the size of a shipping container. I could build like the solar. I could just use a composting toilet. I could just do a kind of water recycling system. I could build my own, basically RV tech. I could just build everything I need. No, that's not legal here. You can't do that. No, the law say. Bunch of fucking bureaucrats. Now, when we get back to the trucking thing, I got to deal with that same type of society In a business world, nah, fuck it. Then we got to put in the other factor. No offense to, I got nothing against foreigners, but I will say some things about this. There are foreigners here who cannot speak the language. That's not true. Bullshit. I was there. I got out of the industry come April 4 years ago. In 4 years, 5 years ago, I remember clearly I'd be at like some DC, let's say a Walmart DC. Some dude speaks. I don't care what country you're from, South America, Africa, some Asian country, the East Bloc. A lot of those East Bloc guys, they love their Volvos. And he uses a translator app. And yes, the translator apps have gotten better. This motherfucker can't understand English, speak English, and he's out there driving on the road. And you know why he's doing that? Just like what you see in the computer, the tech world. That H-1B cost, and by the way, here's what happens. You make an American driver jump through 12.5 fucking hoops. Well, if you want to get a CDL, it used to be, let me tell you how easy it was to get that CDL back when I was younger. You just had to have a guy that had a truck that fully functioned. Nothing wrong with it. So you have a tractor and a trailer, and then you go take the written test. So you go and study the book, read it 2, 3, 4 times over, and you write down some questions, and you ask yourself the questions, do a bunch of pre-testing, you go in there, you take all the tests, track the Class A testing, and then basically you go and, air brakes and all that. I don't even know if it's a separate thing now. Used to be, because you still had some old, like, pre-air trailers floating around, which is funny to think they're like, you would think you would just have everybody understanding air. But yeah, you got these, you get out there and you go and take the written test. And then you got the physical test, the driving test. And you have to get this $100 certificate, piece of paper, application. And then you give it to the testing guy and you go out there and you fucking drive around. Best way to learn, you learn with a guy that knows how to drive. You get a permit first and then you learn with that guy and then you go take the whole test. And as far as the double clutching back in the day, the Addams Family beat, da-na-na-na, bump, bump. That's literally the beat for double clutching. And if you're good enough, you could synchro, but don't do that on a test. Point of it is that it used to be something $200 to $300 you could go out and get your test. You talk to the super old timers, one guy says, yeah, when I used to turn my chauffeur's license into a CDL for free. Like, and by the way, this is part of the reason I say fuck you to the boomers. Because you guys got into the industry, all the wild and crazy, the 1980s and all the accidents. Yeah, that was your generation doing that shit. Okay? That was your generation, boomers. And then the Gen Xers and the boomers. You guys had it easy. Then you make this industry where it's like cost some guy, back when I first got into it, as far as Class A, it was $3,000 if you went to some shit company. One of those companies that, I'm not going to name names, but like they have a driving school. Now it's probably $5,000 or more. We're talking to get a CDL, to get something that used to be like $200, $300. And by the way, the schools don't teach you any better than what you would have learned from just learning from your own people. You pass the exact same test. But let's go over to the H-1Bs. They got a family member over here who has a trucking school, somehow got certified. Or they know a guy, Rafiq's trucking school. And then they come over here and they already know how to drive truck from, doing it in their own country, except for they're like, Mumbai, India, trucking, where they're doing some crazy shit on a fucking mountain pass, that type of shit. Run over a person, but don't hit that cow. I'm sorry if that's a little derogatory for some of you motherfuckers, but I mean, I've seen everything out there. I've seen people who and honestly, I'm kind of impressed how flexible. You see the Yogi trucker where he's got his feet up on, he's got it on cruise control out on the big flats, and he's got his feet up there on the dash. And, basically, Like, could you even hit the brakes? Nope. Maybe he could get him down quick enough. Who knows? I've seen like Asians. I've seen people from the East. They cannot speak the fucking language. Do you even understand the signs? Can you read the road signs? Doesn't matter because it's cheaper. And another thing that'll happen, and let me tell you, this is one of the reasons that trucking, you can get rich doing a game like trucking, or any game where you don't have to pay rent. Any game where you could park like a van or live in a bunkhouse, where you could just like get in the crew bus to go to work, where you just don't have to pay rent and utilities and all that. That's part of the reason trucking's an attractive business to a lot of foreigners, because they're not going to, a lot of them, the plan isn't, they're not going to settle down in America. They're going to work for 5 to 10 years, if that. They're going to live just like I live, as far as, they're not paying rent, they're not paying utilities, and they're making 100, like they're not making no 100K a year because they're working for one of their Rafiq's trucking. But if you're making 70K a year when you normally making 100K a year after that much experience, but your country is like fucking India or some rat country in South America, not the good ones, not the upper second world countries. Second world, but first world pockets for the tourist. Now we're talking, you come from a country that's kind of shit. You got 70K down there. You are king. You do this for 3, 4, 5 years. Even 50K. You're living like a goddamn king for the rest of your life. Invested right, you will be fine. You have multi-generational money. So that's lot of the reason a lot of these people will come over here. Because it's the bar of entry is basically nothing. You go to Rafiq's trucking school, like Uncle Rafiq, and then you drive for Ahmed or whatever relative. Then you have the actual American driver. Like, oh, you got to buy a truck? Fuck no. I got to compete against these people that are undercutting. And the thing I got to explain about this is I can do things most drivers can't. I'm a natural nomad. Look at me. Look at this van. Does it look like I give a shit about style and fashion? I mean, fuck. No, it's clearly the answer is no. I can live like an immigrant, but most of you can't. Most of you got a wife and kids at home. You got a life that you're paying for. She's got her SUV. You've got, hopefully, a lot of smart truckers, they'll keep the one family car with her at home, and when they get back to the terminal or wherever they park, the wife will come pick them up. Because why have 2 car payments if you're never there to drive the other vehicle? Or he'll have a beater, a little, like how many guys worked a job where you go to the company picnic and they show up in this really nice SUV and you're like, why the hell don't you ever drive that? I don't want to put miles on it. Plus, my wife's a crappy driver and I know my kids will be safe. That was I got a chuckle out of that. But that guy was driving like a Subaru Justy and she was driving this just oversized SUV. And you'll see that. Guys will have a crapper mobile to drive to work. But they've got a house payment, a modern American today house payment. They got two or three kids. Let's say two and one on the way. And, kids eat lots of food. They shoes, clothing, stuff. A lot of these drivers, because of the way they structured their life and the way your life has been structured for you, I'm being honest about that. Because even if you do everything right as a guy, a gal, or whatever, you do the hero's journey, and you're retired by 30, you could lose it all in divorce. Because America, we care about the family, but we want to break it up for profit. America. Yeah. Most of these guys that I see out there, they've already pre-fucked their lives. Generally because they screwed a chick and she was good for a handful of times running the sunlight sex. And then they're out there and this is why a lot of drivers hate driving truck. Because they don't want to be there. Like the town they grew up in, they love their people, they love their hometown. But there's no real work. And this is the best they can do. So they're away from their family for a week, 2 weeks at a time. They come back for a couple days, then they're back out on the road. And by the way, that is a recipe. You got a lonely woman at home. Well, women don't have the morals they used to have. Some do, but a lot of them don't. And then you end up hearing that, the backdoor man, slamming her ass. And then you're portrayed as a shitty person because, he's never home because I have to feed this family. Mama's in the graveyard, Papa's in the pen. Great song, by the way. Most drivers out there hate being out there, which is the funny thing. I'm the absolute opposite. I don't have kids. I don't have problems. I just got me and a dog. That's it. I'm a natural nomad. I like living in the obscure and the waste. That's part of the reason for those that think, well, why didn't you get a job, last fall or last spring? Well, I applied for, I actually, before I even bothered to apply, I called dozens of companies to kind of get an evaluation. A lot of them, their attitude was, well, you haven't worked in over this long and you got to have recent experience. I drove for 9 fucking years, people. What do you think? I just became retarded? Okay, it's like Mega Man. It's Mega Man logic. Every game, at the end of every game, Dr. Light's like, well, you couldn't possibly need these weapons. By the way, there's a message there. Just for if there's ever a gamer that watches this. Dr. Light trusted Mega Man so much as an individual that every game he neutered the weapons. Mega Man, you can't have those nasty weapons. You can't have those. Why? I just saved all of you motherfuckers. That'd be like saying we don't trust the soldiers enough to have a gun. We don't trust the police to have a gun. And sometimes I think that's accurate, but it's crazy. You drive for like 9 years, over 9 years, and you're actually a natural nomad, which is something that is very rare these days. Comfort has killed that aspect of a lot of people. Most people never had it. Most people are nesting people. They really are. They're nesting people. And so I go out there and I'm checking out all these companies. And what eventually I came to a conclusion, and by the way, the smug, stupid bullshit. By the way, one company, and you get this from a few of them. Well, we get people like you we get thousands of people like you every day. Why should we hire you? I was like, lady, you don't get a nomad. You get people that drive truck because they have bills to pay that hate what they do. I actually love what I do, and I don't want to ever go home. And I said, if you can't recognize the value of that, then I don't know why the hell you're in HR. Oh, wait, I know. You sucked the boss. I actually said this to a bitch. You sucked his dick, didn't you? Like you're trash. Those type of people piss me off. By the way, I'm going to point that out. 9 years of fucking experience. And like, but you don't have recent experience. Well, what's changed? What's changed in my industry? Really, what's changed? Are you guys using a new version of Qualcomm or whatever you fucking call it now? So we would have had to learn that anyways. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Are you, did you make the trucks hover or something? Well, what are we doing? Do we now use levitation technology? Oh, what? Let me tell you the only thing that really changed in the industry. Now pretty much everybody's using automatics. I'm used to driving a 13 speed. Well, see, you see, because you're used to driving a 13, which requires more effort to drive. You couldn't possibly drive an automatic. My van is an automatic. Well, see, a truck is different. No, it's really not. Automatic is an automatic is an automatic. The only thing about automatics, I would argue, when they first came out, that was actually, I thought was fucking really shitty, is the backup was really fast. You can control a 13 way better backing up than you could control an original automatic. Original automatics were shit. Now they've got the bugs out of them. So it's literally easier to drive now than it was then. Well, you don't have recent experience. And let me tell you exactly what that is. And this comes down to the whole problem with the world and the industry and the whole fucking world. The insurance companies rule my industry. Don't believe me? You're talking at least probably $20,000 or more for your average, you know, company to have insurance. So like not company, I'm talking just one guy with one truck. Probably 20,000 or more. Used to be you could find it maybe for 16, but I'm just throwing it out there, 20 grand. And why? Because you're talking over $1 million plus insurance. Because when bad wrecks happen and someone's injured, oh yeah, it's expensive. So there's a reason for that. But in order for these companies to get slightly cheaper insurance, they want to see a driver that has, you know, years of experience. And I have 9 years of experience, but it's not recent. So what I'll have to do when I go back to the industry, which brings us back to the original thing I was talking about, is I'll have to basically be fresh meat again. I'll have to work for literally a starter company. And let me explain something. I don't want to sound like, what's the big deal? It's not the money. I don't really need the money. I can live off less than $5,000 a year. It's just the idea that you're like, well, it'd be like, okay, it's like telling a doctor or a plumber or something that with 9 years of experience in your particular field, like you've done the same thing over and over and over again for 9 fucking years. You know all of the country. You know all of it. You know what the secret park spots, all the things. But no, you don't know what you're doing. You're retarded. And I think to myself, I'm going to have to be fresh meat. Not to come off like that character from MASH, Charles Emerson Winchester, like, you know, the indignity of it, you know, the shame, the indignity of the situation. That's really what it's like. I can't imagine telling a surgeon this. I can't imagine telling a plumber this. I can't, you know, and it's like, if I want to go back to the industry, I'm going to have to be fresh meat again, which, okay. Well, let me tell you the problem I have with being fresh meat. Most of those companies run shit loads. Shit loads. They run like, well, this is a long load, and it's like 700 miles. Honey, I can drive 700 miles in one fucking day. I'm used to driving anywhere from 3 to 4 day loads on the way out. I mean, you heard the explanation I said earlier. It's grating. It's grating doing those type of companies. But I'm getting to the age where I'm just like, and by the way, the only reason, okay, other than the fact that I love getting paid to travel, I love one day you're up in the Northwest, next thing you know, and you're in some random part of Texas, there's a lot of little byways and highways that allow you to shave off miles and time. You know, if your truck's maxed out at 65 or 70 miles per hour, you know, this road is 70 and you're able to do 68. Fuck, what's the diff? You know, good example of that is Laredo to Sanderson, Texas, to Stockton, Texas. It's a Fort Stockton, and then north, kind of the back way. You know, well, that's next to the border. Ooh, scary. Well, you start off in Laredo, and yes, I park on the streets of Laredo. At least I used to. I don't know, and I never had a lick of trouble. You know, you just park where a bunch of other trucks are, and if you know, I've never had an issue down there. Oh, you could get hijacked and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, back then I packed a gun, but I've never had to use it. You know, fuck, there's times I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I had this here. You can totally forget it. So I'm back on the sleeper. You know, you go that back way, and it's just like, there's just the byways, the highways, the places. Uvalde, Texas, there's another area. Go back way through Uvalde. And the drive through there up where you go up to the I-10 there junction is absolutely fucking beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I like that. I like getting paid to travel like that. You know, the other thing about it is, you know, one of my most blessed, and I got this from back when I was the first stage of progress when I was moving garbage for a living. You know, I was a rear end loader garbage truck driver for 4 years. That's how I paid off my first house. That feeling that I don't remember where I went to bed. They're like, what do you mean? I would move every day. I'd change spots every day. That way, any sort of local drug addicts or problem people wouldn't know where I was at. You'd be guessing where I was at. Well, why is that an issue? Because you sometimes, for all the good people out there, you got a few fuckos. So I would change spots every night. So there are some spots on the weekends, like the sand ship, I might stay there for the weekend, you know, or the place out by the Baptist church where I was hidden in the forest and there were, you know, across the forest and the field, there was their place over there. Theater Road spot, I should say. But yeah, for the most part, I would move every night. And sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and I'm like, where the hell am I? And I'd have to think for a second, oh yeah, that's where I'm at. Trucking, it made me so happy sometimes. And I know that's weird to explain, and I should probably make that its own little recording. Where that feeling, like I love being here in my little spot in the wasteland. This is like little slice of heaven for me. But like that feeling of just, I'm here, then I'm there, then I'm there, then I'm there. Teleport here, teleport there. Don't know where I'm at, don't know where I'm going, don't give a shit. I love that feeling. That completely chaotic, where the hell am I going feeling. It's similar to the feeling I get when I bum change. You know? And this is the paradox of me, by the way. I either want to be making like God tier money driving truck, and for a guy that lives off less than 5K a year, making 100K a year, yeah, it's pretty damn, like 1 year equals 20 years of living. Work 2 years, there's the rest of my life, basically. Invest it, then your money's making like 200,000 at 10% is what, 20 grand a year? Do this for a handful of years. So it'd take, you know, obviously take out 5,000, then take out some of the taxes, live in a state with no state income. But so, you know, let's say 80K invested every year. I mean, I do a lot of this just as a joke. And as there's one other thing, I would like to buy a piece of the wasteland down here. I'd have to pass my rigorous test, which is, people are like, what's your rigorous test? Are there cat-sized foxes around? You know? And is it, okay, am I on the outskirts of town enough to where I can ride like a little e-bike into town to wherever the gym is with the showers, top off my water, get my mail, get my stuff, you know, like old man type of stuff. You know, the old man plan. Could I do that? That's something to think about. You know, and then obviously having enough money to where I can have my RV. I don't want a house. In the future, I don't want to deal with a house. I want to be with a house. If I need a house as an old person, let's just do a drop house. You know, something small, little. What are those little? You know, they're like, they bring them out they're like on skids, and it's just like a little cabin, like that, or one of those container sized where it folds out, a fold out house. And they're like, well, how long is that going to be around? Let's just say I'm 65, 75. Okay, RV life will probably last into my 70s, assuming I make it that far, or I'm healthy enough. You know? If I make it to 75 and I can't really travel anymore, how long does the house have to last? I mean, just being real about that. But yeah, I need almost nothing to be satisfied in life. So the whole thing of going back to trucking is that it's just like a backup plan. I've got this much money, this much assets, but still, in my opinion, it couldn't hurt to have more, you know? And plus, I just really love getting paid to travel the country, wake up in random locations, like, hey, here we are today, here we are there. Hey, I know where a good catfish restaurant is down here in Tennessee. I know where this place is over here, up, say, the Wisconsin. Oh, like this truck stop, they've got the best meats and cheeses. Or there's a place right across from this particular truck stop in Missouri where the cafe is really good. Or, you know, I like this, you wake up and the flowers, you know, in this area, like, okay, let me give you a quick story before I end this. There's this flower called the Western Redbud. It's all over America. You start seeing it when you're south of Ashland, Oregon, Mount Shasta, you'll see it. And it blooms about the same time that your dogwoods bloom. And it's just all over the goddamn country. It's just, you get that part of the early to mid spring in America where everything's becoming green. Like, I lived in the woods for 4 years, and there's the time in the Northwest. The dead season over there isn't snow and cold and miserable. But the thing about it is that it is in the alder forest. All the leaves are gone. The big leaf maple leaves are gone. It's kind of a gray, dead time, and it's cold. And sometimes if you live in a place that's got the shadows to just right with the humidity, like a river or streams nearby, you'll get crystal flowers during the dead of winter. Like the ducka bush and up the Dosey Wallops, you can see crystal flowers if the conditions are right. They're basically ice flowers. But it's not this horrific, like if you go up into the hills, you'll start getting snow. But it's not this horrific level of cold oppression like you get in the Rocky Mountain states. You know, where it's like, you have that kind of like, you get so used to 6 months of winter that you forget. You see a picture of the tree from last fall, back when it was like gold, beautiful gold. And you're like, wow, that was real. That was a real thing, because you haven't looked at the picture in a long time. Or you see like your green lawn in a picture and you're like, oh yeah, grass. That's not how Western Washington is. But you get that time of the year where it's like super dead, super this, super that. And it's like the time of death. And then because you've been in that kind of living death state for about 4 months or longer, when spring comes back, it's like, look at the colors. Look at it. You know? And that type of like vibrance of life, and birds are chirping. You're like, oh my God. And you go all over America, bringing it back to trucking and the redbud. And this Western redbud will be blooming. It's kind of a pinkish, purplish flower. Tiny little flowers all over these bushes. And there'll be dogwoods and stuff. I remember this one time I was at a meat plant of some sort, like a chicken processing plant. And I was thinking of how ironic it was, because I was waiting to get loaded, taking my dog for a walk. I'm like, here we have this, like, these chickens and the chicken trailers, death and destruction on an industrial scale here. And then I look right over, and this absolute vision of beauty of Tennessee is right there. By the way, Tennessee is a state that I would think about living in, because no state income tax, and it's got trees. It's beautiful. I mean, you want to see a place that's absolutely beautiful. Another great place I used to do loads of onions. Savannah, Tennessee, the Hush Puppy plant. There's affordable housing in that town, really affordable, and the climate is nice. Sure, it gets cold during the winter, but whatever. I don't know. I've been all over the country, and that's the part I miss. I miss the randomness. The money's great, but you know, and they say if the money wasn't there, would you do it? Well, no. And here's why. Because you're risking your life on ice a lot of the times. I'm not going to risk my life for no payola. But like, this is where we come back to the whole thing of like, would I just take a government check? Would I take UBI? Like, would I fake crazy? Sometimes when you're out there dealing with the fucking nonsense of society, like that HR bitch, you know, like that, just talking down to people like that, you know, and you're just like, you know what? Why am I bothering to contribute? Why? You know, like, I don't need that much money to be perfectly happy. I mean, honestly, let me give you the numbers on this. I said it before and I'll say it again. Let's see, $15 a month for laundry, $30 a month for a cell phone, unlimited data. What? $25 a month for auto insurance for my van. Maybe $10 or $20 a month for gas. I don't unsiege from this place very often. You know, we're talking, and hell, I could hit up the food banks to get all the food I need and then some. I eat better going to food banks than I eat when I buy my food. And that's why sometimes I look back at it and think to myself, my buddies who faked crazy, they got like EBT, $1,000 a month, anywhere from 800 to $1,000. Well, you figure like $200-300 in EBT, and then like six, let's say $700 to 800 or more in cash, and they're just like, one guy was just living in a trailer next to his dad's diesel shop, so he ended up having an extra $300-400 every month. Just piss away on whatever, and once you got more than enough pot, and then you got more than enough of whatever you need, he's like, well, I guess I'll buy another welfare gun. That's why I've joked around and said welfare gold, gold and silver, maybe even have one of your family members investing for you, and then you inherit the money after they pass. Good plan for both of you. That way you take care of them and they take care of you. It's just crazy, because last August, I actually really wanted to go back to the end. I had this choice. I could either just go out and do the big adventure and go bum some change, have a lot of fun. And I did that. Eventually I did that. But for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks in August, I was taking down numbers for companies, taking this, and I was evaluating whether the company's even worth, okay, this is a dirt company, not my thing. This seems to be, a can hauler. I don't want to do that because can hauler's local. This is this. I was going through, I was evaluating, and yeah, I could probably accomplish it all in a week and a half instead of 3 weeks if I'd really just been powering it out. But I spent 3 weeks applying myself and then seeing which companies, and then a handful of companies that did make the cut. I applied at them. And I think it really comes down to, well, you don't have any recent experience. With 9 years of experience, by the way. Clean record, absolute clean driving record, no criminal background, paid off house, clearly responsible. Well, I know you look at the van, you think, maybe not. But I look at it and think to myself, I'm like, wait, man, you're going to make it this much of a pain in the ass for a guy to be a responsible person, then why the fuck wouldn't people just check out? And you got to understand, bringing it all back to this, I actually like doing that job. You know how most people hate their jobs? I actually like living in a truck. I actually like, well, why'd you quit then? I'm going to answer that for any of you that are wondering. I worked about 9 years. Altogether, you figure maybe 10 years or so, not including the 4 to 5 years of Class B driving. I had this house up there in the Rocky Mountain State. And I always thought, I need to do something with that. And I still had it in my brain, my mind, the idea that, hey man, do a remodel on it and do this. And I was raised under that mentality that you could hire people, that there were competent people, that, the people would show up on time, or you would make an appointment and people would show, instead of like no call, no show bullshit. That when you set up, say, I'd like to get a bid from your company to do the plumbing work on this house, on this remodel. I'd like to get a bid, by the way, nobody would say the word bid. Well, we can do an estimate. Or we could do this, parts and labor. Parts and labor is a fucking scam. Every time. Anybody ever tells you that shit? No. You're going to give me a number, and that's your number. If you try to tell me parts and labor, whoever the highest bid is, I'm going to say yours is 5 times that. What? What do you mean? If you can't write down as an adult, as a guy that's ran a plumbing business for 20 years or however long, or you were raised in the industry, if you can't write down a number, a rough estimate, and I understand, maybe it's a little high, maybe it's a little, you pad your numbers, that makes sense. You add on whatever you think it's going to be plus this much percent, just like you do in trucking if you're going to bid your own loads. You're going to be doing your own loads. You add on this much just in case fuel costs more, whatever costs more. You just pad that number. And if it turns out that, it costs a little more than you initially thought, then you still make your money. But if it ends up coming a little under, you still did good. Not this crap where you're like, I can't tell you what the number is until we're done. By the way, doesn't that sound like your fucking government? We got to pass it before we can show you what's in it. Fuck is that? And in the cases where like I call up the plumbing company and 7 months later I get a call, well, we can do an estimate on your place. I'm like, who is this? Well, this is such and such. I'm like, I called you like last July. It's now May. Something like that, Well, we've been really busy. It's like, yeah, apparently. And the only reason I didn't have them do the estimate on the plumbing is because some things had changed at that point. Now I realized I was trying to find what do you call it? What type of engineer is it? It's not a civil engineer. It's not an architect. It's the other part, basically you got to do this. And then this guy has to go over engineering wise, go over and make sure that what you want to do, by the way, all the things I wanted to do on that house, if I'd done it 5, 10, 15 years ago before the county got sued, I could have done it. I could have literally punched out of the roof. I could have opened up holes and put in shed dormers. I could have built a whole second floor on that house. I could have set up the whole house as a 7-foot on the main floor and then had a second floor up above with a staircase going up to it. I could have had a bathroom up above. I have the space up there, but because of just structural engineering, I think that's what it is. Because of all the fucking extra bullshit and wasted time. Like the first year when I was still working, so it actually took 4 years, I'd go over there every once in a while and I'd clean out the house. I'd just get rid of stuff, give away stuff, local thrift store, go to the dump. And then after that, it became kind of the tear out. I was getting rid of all the old, like, fucking, what do you call that shit? It was that, that wood paneling from the 70s, the fake wood paneling. Tearing that off, realizing we had fucking wood, like pine board put on the back, and then it was nailed into, plaster lath of like probably 6, 7, 8 layers of wallpaper, because wallpaper used to be the thing. And then colors of paint you haven't seen. Linoleum shades. This house has had a number of remodels, by the way, that you've never seen. Just this mess of shit. And then if I had known, by the way, this is nothing against the guy that helped me out, because eventually we did get it done. If I had known it was going to be one of those things, and I blame a lot of this on, frankly, my family, because if he had just come up there, like when he had nothing better to do after him and her broke up, then he was just like, came up there and we worked and we just powered out and got it done. But it had been, well, we can do this remodel on it and we can have it done by fall. That was the initial plan. So it would have been me doing the clean out the first year, and then we would have done the remodel that summer and fall, and we could have had it on the market back when the housing market was fucking king. If I had known it was going to take 3 years after doing the first initial clean out, so 4 years total, I would have just fucking sold the place for $150K and been on my merry fucking way. I would have kept on driving truck. I would have just kept on driving truck. And by the way, for the manager who said, dude, you should just sell that place. It'll just slow you down. You'll be losing money. Rob, you were right. You were fucking right, Rob. And by the way, that's one of the things. I basically, my house is always, and probably always will be to me, basically a storage unit. Living in it last winter sucked. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I was just heating the house enough to, not have the pipes freeze and me staying alive. And I got used to that. But it wasn't like, yay, it's cold. You know what? Down here in the wasteland, it's fucking nice every goddamn day. Even when it's shitty, it's still nicer than it is up there. Let's say it's cold and rainy. Let's say it even snows down here, because it has happened a few times. It's fucking nice. Yeah, I think to myself, sometimes when I think about the whole concept of going back to work, and, I'm going to have to be fresh meat. That's just what's going to happen if I'm going to do it. But then I think to myself, I'm like, I see so many people just faking crazy on the system. And I'm like, I know I'm kind of out there. I'm like, when I tell people, which it's perfectly functional, perfectly logical. And it reminds me of that Magic the Gathering card, Gibbering Descent. And I'm not a fucking crazy. I'm not an idiot. but people think I am. Where it's all like, it's like every word she said was true. Though it's something so like something to the effect of even though nobody could believe her, every word she said was actually true. Gibbering dissent. That's the way it feels sometimes. Where you're like, hey man, just live as cheap as possible, state with no state income tax, take your money and invest it when you're young, like compound interest work for you, buy a piece of raw land, or buy a house in a state that has no, that's affordable, like the Midwest, the South, the Texas, the places in America that are still affordable. There's nothing like mathematically, everything I've told you will work. You'll be retired younger. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. That's part of the reason I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, I feel like Zeromus from Final Fantasy 12, well, after having to conduct so many goddamn trials, the innocent and the guilty, that you just don't give a shit. You're just like, fuck it. Like you actually, you know what? I'm glad you're suffering. Like, just like the Esper Zeromus. Not to be confused with the end boss of Final Fantasy 4, or, I believe it was 4. 4, which was 2 in America, Zeromus. But after enough fucking times of having the right game, the right plan, an easy way that anybody could retire if they just weren't fucking animals. Because that's what a lot of you are. No offense. I like the way she make penis feel. Oh my god, child is expensive. Da, da, da. After about the millionth time of dealing with the same thing. Groundhog's Day. Fucking. I'm just like, nah, fuck y'all. If you're too dumb to listen to common sense, like a mathematical mindset, how you can control your future. Like I was listening to this guy got out of prison. He got out of prison. He basically got a job. He's working in Jersey at Pepsi. And he worked his way now. He's finally off the parole. He doesn't have to deal with that shit anymore. And he's like, all these people saying these other people holding you back. And it's like, no, man, how much of this was our own choices, our parents' choices putting us in that situation? He's like just laying it out. He's just taking life. He's realizing that it's not taking life by the horns so much. It's just taking accountability for your own existence. And after a while of, being a logical thinker among people that are frankly just overgrown fucking children. By the way, this is part of the reason I say, if you're letting your kids watch my shit, you're a bad parent, because I swear a lot. If your kids start thinking a little more real, that's probably a good thing, but it'll get you in trouble. And I'm just like, why the hell would I even want to contribute to this system? Why would I even want to deal with it? And then it comes down to, after all the years I paid taxes into a system that was pretty much exploiting me, why should I feel fucking bad whatsoever about getting money back from it? I mean, do you feel bad when you get that huge tax return because you pooped out some children that basically the system raises? No, you feel fine about that. God. Yeah, by the way, all the hardworking people in America trying to tell me how they pay taxes. Really? Have you seen the cost of your kids' public school? What, do you think that shit's free? What about all the roads, the prison system, the military, all these things that keep society together? What, do you think that shit just fucking manna from heaven? You retards? I wish that wrong ideas, to some degree, came with punishment, physical fucking punishment, like beaten. If you really fucked up intellectually, we'd bring you out with the caning. And you'd watch how quickly, just like, and this is, by the way, I'm not the first to say this. Aaron Clary said this. Cold and hunger are a motivation to never deal with, to build systems to never deal with that again. Like when he was talking about when he was going through college and he, could barely afford to keep his little place heated. And he couldn't hardly afford food. And he says that people don't realize the luxury of that. And this is, by the way, people don't recognize the luxury of that. Like when you literally have people buying fucking fast food or restaurant food with EBT, you have killed off the motivation for them to ever be great. And that's part of the reason that, like, when I have a good sound message, that's exactly why it's ignored. Because y'all don't suffer enough. There is no, like, once you get to a certain level of lower class, whether you're working or welfare, there is no difference. Other than one works and one doesn't. That's it. Like, you still enjoy a comfortable enough life to not think. So I bring it back to it. It's like, I get a little tired. Like, for instance, when it's like, when I want to work, they're like, well, you got to jump through this hoop, jump through this hoop, jump through this hoop. Yeah, I already jumped through all those hoops back in the day. I already know what I'm doing. Well, you do. No. You don't know what you're doing. It's like, why the fuck would I want to be a contributing person? Why? Why? And by the way, I want to tell you something about trucking. It is deadly. It is potentially deadly. There have been some situations that I could have fucking died. I could probably count on one hand. Let's see. The vehicle that exploded next to me that time. The guy drove the wrong way on the freeway and fucking front-ended the vehicle next to me. Giant fireball. God, right after I even got in, I'm like, what the fuck was that? Boom! Let's see. This one didn't really affect me so much, but there was that person, L.A., apparently she must have been looking at her cell phone, and she just full speed rear-ended the car in front of her. I'm like, wow, that just happened. Now, that wouldn't have affected me because she would have rear-ended the back of the trailer, so let's skip that one. Okay, I got at least 4 more. US 6 going down it, and the snow got really super crazy, and I had to reach out, roll down the window, because the snow, there was a level of snow above where my wipers were that cut loose and slowly slid down, and there was like a few seconds there where I couldn't see. Mind you, I was going slow in that. But it was like, you talk about a scary fucking moment. You're like, if shit could go really wrong right now. And why? Because, I don't know, the ice dam thus broketh at that point. Using all the techniques. You got like the cardboard on in front of, a little bit on the bottom of the windshield, so any sort of heat coming up, and you got the fans keeping the windshield, because if it hadn't been there, it would have been iced over, it would have been fucked. There was one time somewhere in the south, I can't remember, it was the 24 or whatever, the 64, where some guy jackknifed, he was a pickup truck and a trailer, and he jackknifed his vehicle, and there was no indication he was there. And somehow, just pure muscle instinct, I took the truck, and if there had been someone next to me, they would have been dead. I just like moved over, and then I don't know why I did the move back. I had that once happen with a mule deer out near Twin Falls with my Ford Escort. Just instant reaction. By the way, guys, that's why you really pay attention to what's going on the sides of you. And you make sure nobody's on your sides and no one's behind you too close, because if you have to hit the brakes, that situation, like right there, that could have been a catastrophic wreck for me. I managed to avoid that. Another ice time was, once again, Utah. Coming down the 80. And similar to that, I had, I'm coming down there, this is a lot faster. Not hugely faster. But the ice dammeth broketh above the windshield wipers. And I'm reaching out the window with the scraper, and I'm like, because, I'm like, God damn it, just get it out of the way. I'm actually over in the fast lane on the side, so I can stay to one side or the other. Because I can guarantee if something goes wrong, at least I'm on this side and I don't have someone there. And that was a fucking scary as hell moment there. Why was it happening? Well, a freak snowstorm just blew out like that. Traffic all around me, and I got through it. We would talk about the heart rate raising there. This is one that I saw coming. It was a huge wreck that happened. Not me, but this guy in a Jetta down near Enos, Texas. I saw this happen. It was a Volkswagen of some sort, some really nice Volkswagen. I saw his tire doing the wobbling like that, doing a little of that shit, and I'm like, fuck this. And I got as far over to the slow lane to basically where you could, if I had to, I could pull off. I pulled all the way over there, and the time that I did that, his front tire blew up. And he veered into the vehicle next to him, which then that vehicle fucking wiggled around, a car jumped the freeway and went into like an F-150 on the other side. And this caused even more accidents. So a bunch of accidents all banging into back each other. And I watched this. I watched it kind of I went over like this and got to the side before. So I completely avoided this. But I was watching this shit unfold. This blew up and hit that. That ended up freaking out and jumping the freeway. Bunch of people behind all these people that were all tailgating, all rear-ended each other. And I managed to bat. I just keeping an eye on what was going on around me. I saw the shit happening. And I'm like, fuck this. And I'm out. You know, like I managed to not be in any way touched by that. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but by the grace of God that time. And like one car jumped and hit an F-150 on the other side. And I'm like, mother of fucking God. Another time when the ice got really crazy, so we're up over 5 now. Times that I could have gone horribly wrong. I was going on the 94. I think it was the 94 or the 90. I think it's the one with the Bismarck, Bismarck, North Dakota. What is the 143, 147 truck stop? I'm going along and I'm trying to get far enough, and the icy roads got really bad really quick. And you know when that freak storm that blows in and causes super black ice? And there was the wind literally, I was driving along and the wind was trying to push my truck. And if anybody had been next to me, it would have been catastrophic. You know? Luckily, there was no one next to me, but I managed, I did mud/ice techniques, got it going. And once I got to a place, because I wasn't just going to pull off at any exit, I got to where that truck stop was. And here's this fucked up part about it. If I managed to get like 50 or 100 miles longer, I wouldn't have added an extra day to that. But here's what ended up happening. I ended up being stuck at that truck stop. And I said, I'd rather be at this truck stop just in case this goes really bad. Because I could top off my trailer at a freezer load. But it's fucking winter in North Dakota. So I turned my reefer on to stop-start. It has to be on continuous. Bullshit. And I got a park spot. I was stuck there for 5 days. It just kind of became what you did. You were just stuck there forever. Hopefully you get detention pay. Because this is not the plan. Yeah, that one was crazy. And there was another time, another guy, I remember somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Once again, they wrecked their vehicle. And no lights, no four-ways, no nothing. And I managed to avoid that. I have had my near misses in my industry. I know how fucking deadly this shit is. And I still want to go back because I miss driving truck. I miss the organized chaos, the excitement of it. I don't miss HR. I don't miss bullshit safety meetings where they're preaching at you about something like, you've only did this for 9 years. Apparently, you're an idiot now. Mandatory this, mandatory that. And mind you, I'll deal with that crap. The one thing I won't deal with at a company is the DEI shit. You know, where you're white and they're trying to tell you, well, racism, blah, blah. No, fuck you. I'm not going to. And this kind of goes for the whole ICE thing. I've done this for this many years. I'm a safe driver. Why the hell are you preaching at me? You know? But like this whole thing where they're preaching at you because they're a mandatory type of crap where in order to avoid, some Jesse Jackson agency fucking suing them. Now you are basically being told, don't do the thing you're already not doing. Imagine if that's like having to pay a traffic ticket. And you didn't even have a traffic ticket. I did have it one time where one guy gunned the light and ran into I was finishing my turn and an old guy, a geezer, gunned the light and impaled his vehicle like on the front end of my driver's side. Like literally, I still have it over in the Rocky Mountain State. I have it, like his car hit so hard on my drive side tire, which it did almost no damage to my vehicle, that his license plate was impaled on the bolts because he was some old geriatric, and I'm still finishing my turn, and he just guns it. I don't know if he was some foreign guy. I don't know if he was trying to get a lawsuit or something, but because I had everything recorded. And I also had it recorded. When I was talking to the cops, I'm like, well, is he okay? Does he need to go? No, he says he feels absolutely fine. He just wants to go home. Yeah, when they tried to sue the company, I'm like, here you go. Here's the evidence. You know, I've had so many crazy experiences. And all of those experiences wasn't like one could say the icy experience. Well, what were you doing when it was icy? You know what? Let me tell you something about how the planet works. You could be on one side of a mountain and everything is absolutely fine. You come over the hill and then it's not. Sometimes the roads just change that quickly. That's just what happens. And sometimes you can't just pull over anywhere. So you got to power through it. I've driven through snow at times where it would scare off most drivers. I know how to drive on ice. I know how to drive. Fuck, when I worked in the Rocky Mountain State, the back way took us by Palisades Reservoir. And I don't know how many of you have ever seen Palisades Reservoir during the winter, going back through up towards the Hobuck Junction and then up to Rock Springs, south to Rock Springs through there. But it's like you're driving on solid fucking ice. Like, I've done some crazy things out there. I've seen some amazing things. Mountaintops, old railroads in the middle of a mountain pass, forgotten places, old missionary schools. I love the organized chaos. And sometimes I think, would it be the same? Would it be the same if it was just me in an RV or Prius? Would it be the same? I don't know. Because part of what makes it so weird and bizarre is that, of course, when you're driving truck, you're getting a load. Let's say like that meat processing place. You'd never be there otherwise. And then you think to yourself, what roads would you take generally? Would you just go out of your way to take byways? If it was just you and a Prius, just so you could travel the country at practically, it cost you nothing. Or like when you have a big RV, you gotta plan things out because it costs gas, costs money, And that's the thing I like about trucking. Some of the weird random places I've been, I never would have saw those places. Like Lafarge, Wisconsin. Never would have seen that place if I hadn't been trucking. And I guess I like the random chaos, and they pay me. But yeah, it does kind of burn me that I'll have to be fresh meat after getting 9 years of experience. And that's just what I'll have to do. And the biggest one of the things is, will this starter company allow me to have a dog? Will this starter company be within the region that I like, Western Washington, where, to tell you the truth, as long as I got legal tabs, legal plates, if I got to work for a year in another state, I don't give a shit. Just as long as I can skirt by and not be hassled by the police, I'd keep my vehicle hidden the whole fucking time. I'd be like, yep, just ride a bike to the grocery store. Just go to the grocery store in the truck. Like, what's a good example is Lexington, Nebraska. They have a big Walmart there. The last time I was through there, at least. Truck parking's okay. I don't know if it still is, by the way. Then you've got the Chinese buffet, laundromat, and a little workout. I don't remember what type of fitness place it is, next to the Walmart. There's actually a Sonic. I don't know if it's still there. Across the way, there's actually a McDonald's across the highway. But if you cross the freeway, I think it's the Nebraska truck stop, which isn't a huge one, but it's a good enough one. They got a steakhouse there, by the way. Great example. I'll tell you the truth. There was a lot of times, just as a closing thought, when I thought of going to Walmart, you know how you guys think of just going to the grocery store. Like, if I was back at the terminal, back in the, I won't say where it was, I'd go to the local Albertsons, which was across from the what you call the laundromat, and then I'd go into town the same day. While my laundry was doing its thing, I'd go over to the post office, which was next to old school pizzeria where they had the super. It wasn't the greatest pizza, but it was good. It was good pizza. It's like pizza. It's like sex. Even when it's not that great, it's still pretty good. You know, it's still good. But they had a buffet that was like $6 or so, $7 for all you can eat. You know, and soda refill and all that. Salad if you wanted it. Good pizza buffet. But that was like if I was back at the terminal, so for a 34-hour reset. But if I was thinking about going shopping, just because I would either think Jerome, Idaho, Twin Falls, Jerome, Idaho. Was it Twin Falls? I think it was it Jerome? Because Jerome's actually, if I remember right, is where the Flying J is. But you go just go a few exits down, and there's this Walmart right there. I can't remember what the hell that place is called. But you can easily do right on the sides of the parking lot. There's good parking there. In fact, I've stayed there a couple times overnight when I couldn't make it all the way back to the terminal. That or Lexington, Nebraska was like my primary Walmarts. Lexington, Nebraska, because it was a good place to take a break. If you wanted to do an 8-2 split, you know, you take a 2-hour break there. You go and get all your shopping done, get everything else done, maybe cook a little food, maybe even take a nap. And then basically you get up. And if you could time it right, because you wanted the way to do the 8-2 split was, you want to start off, I'd usually, let's say I started off not in Rollins, because you could make it all the way to, you could make it to the Alki truck stop from where I started. But I generally stayed in Arlington. There's nothing in Arlington. It's just, and I knew how to back up just right to get parked on the side of the road there, because there's enough space. You drive in, you do this, you drive this way, then you back up that way, and then you're ready to get off, because it's got that weird type of exit where it's not like go in and go out easy. It's that got that curly Q shit going in, and then a regular exit going out. But from there, I could definitely make it to Lexington. And the question is, would it be before or after? Because otherwise you go to Grand Island. Grand Island didn't have a Walmart or nothing, but it was a decent truck stop. If you're just going and taking like the half an hour to an hour break, like if you can manage to pull it off, like top off your fuel, then make your way over, take your half an hour break, and then you've got, you know, either half an hour, and if you're there long enough to justify it, take a 2-hour break and do an 8-2 split. But yeah, no, there's a lot of places in America when I think of going to the Walmart, I think of, at least it used to be this way when I was trucking, I think about places in the middle of fucking nowhere. You know, like, oh, going to the Walmart is literally over 1,000 miles away. Yeah, let's see, like, okay, starting off from the terminal, that's about, yeah, it's over, we're going to go to the Walmart. It's over 1,000 miles, like probably 1,200 to 1,300 miles away. Or it's the one that's kind of near the terminal, but like only 100 or 250 miles from the terminal. Another one would be someplace in Washington. There's a number of, and I would scout these places out too. I would get online, get on Google Maps Street View, and I would scout out. This is how I found a lot of good trucking parking, by the way. I would go online and I'd scout out before I got to the shippers, the warehouses. I would scout out the truck parking. If I could park on the street and ghost my way in there, do the 5 mile an hour shuffle, you know. And man, I made fucking money doing that. Made money. Maxing out, just going as far as I could every day. And part of the reason I did that all the time too, there was one in Missouri too. I just don't remember exactly where it was. I also had certain truck stops I liked because they had decent buffets. Yeah, I'm a fat boy. I like, back when buffets were good. Now the buffets are all gone. By the way, I was never there for trucking when trucking was the golden age. I was never there for the golden age of trucking. I was there for when the last sprinkles of when trucking was trucking. The last sprinkles were fading away. You know? The sunset of the golden age of trucking had happened before I ever even showed up. And I was just enjoying the handful of stars in the sky and the new day of the new day of crappy reality for the industry. And there's still a few places around. Some might not be there anymore, come to think of it. That's part of the reason I'm curious to get back into the industry. I'm just curious what still exists. There's places when I was traveling, like the Flying J in Belgrade, Montana. It's gone. It's shut down. It's just an empty site now. I stayed there overnight when I was passing through there. That kind of surprised me. It was a decent truck stop. It wasn't the greatest, but it was a good old school truck stop. Had a restaurant, a real restaurant. The case had real food. The people were a little crass, you know. Yeah, man. Sometimes that's what it's all about for me when I go through an area. I like watching the world grow and change. And I wake up in random locations. But yeah, if the world's going to make it a pain in the ass for me to do what I'm really good at, I'm like, I could work another job someday. As long as I got a safe, cool place to put my dog, you know, I wouldn't even care sometimes. As long as I can live practically off nothing like van life, and even washing dishes wouldn't bother me, you know, seasonally, just temporarily. Doing some type of crap job briefly wouldn't bother me. But this crap where it's like, you know, we got your job and we got the talons in you. You got to work. And it's like, no. I'm sorry. I'm not married to your normal lifestyle. But yeah, I mean, I'm just a nomad. I like the feeling of just like a sailor that likes sailing the seven seas. I like sailing the Great Land Sea. It's just who I am. You know, I have no interest in settling down. You know, like settling down for me is just living in my van in the middle of nowhere. You know, and the part of the reason there's nobody around, there's no problems, there's no issues. It's so laid back. Trucking's like a mobile version of that. You get up. Here's the purpose. Take this load. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days across the country. Unload. Before you're even done with that load, they've already got another one planned out for you. Hey, pick up at this place. Then go over here, you know. Couple days this way, or a day and a half. Next thing you know, where randomly am I going to go? It's just that same kind of like being in my van, Zen-like inner peace. I like it. And they give me a giant pile of money. And I know for you, a lot of you, it's not a lot of money the way you look at it. But I don't have your bills. I'm not obsessed with having overpriced things, you know? Maybe another piece of land somewhere down here in the wasteland. Piece in the Northwest, piece down here. It's a little more money invested. Making me money, so I don't have, making me, just backup money. Money that they're like, what are you going to do with everything after you drop dead? I figure there's been a bunch of food banks that have fed me over the years. I just have a charity that helps give food to food banks, money to food banks, Well, what about family? No. I've told everybody how they can win the game, really, really younger and faster and stronger, and none of them have any interest. My kind of line on life has been like this. If what I do is beneath you, the money I've made from what I do that is beneath you, well, my money is beneath you. I'd rather give it to people. And by the way, I don't think I'm saving the world by giving it to charity. I don't. Charity never solved any fucking problem, but those people gave me better food than I would have been eating otherwise. Just me, a dog, and lots of travel. That's the life for me. Anyways, I've talked for a while. Freedom Phil, take it easy.